Jelly.
You're okay, Gel Bell.
Jelly
Hi.
and Bean.
Oh. Jelly.
Bean, stop.
Bean. Here, maybe if we do this for 1 second. Hi, guys.
Hi, Jelly. Hi, Jelly. Where are you going? Oh, is your wing okay, Beanie?
Hi, Bean. Welcome
Oh,
back
you're a star, Jelly.
to the Of Common Clay podcast. Today's episode, all about our backyard chickens. This is Jelly, and this girl hiding right behind her is Bean.
Oh, is your wing okay?
You guys want to go back outside, I bet? You're like, what the heck are you doing bringing us in here again?
For anyone listening to the audio only,
No Jelly.
you should check out the video.
All right, time to go outside. We're going to get started. We're going to talk all about you. Oh, yep. Thanks, Bean. Bean left us a present. We got to clean that up after you. Okay, back outside, babies.
I think that happened just from being on the table.
No way.
Okay, come on, Jelly. Jelly, come here. Hey.
I don't know where I'd be if it weren't for my family. They're always there for me, showing they care for me. I don't know why some people just can't learn to get along. They'd rather be headstrong.
What episode is this?
This is episode 5.
Episode 5. All about our 5+1 chickens.
Who's the plus one?
Butter, 'cause she's always in between.
Oh, okay.
Or Chick.
Oh, I was going to say Peanut because she's kind of the oddball, but any one of them could be the plus one, I suppose.
Any one of them could be the oddball.
Yeah, well, that's true.
Except Jelly and Bean.
Yeah, well, yeah, except Jelly and Bean, the OGs. We took a short little break between episodes, but we're back now, and we've definitely always wanted to do this episode, talking about just the joy of being friends with our backyard chickens, mostly. But I don't know, where should we begin? I think it might be kind of fun to begin like slightly before we got the chickens. Just at least I'll share that like we had been, we joined the Farmers Union, I think at the end of 2019, Hawaii Farmers Union United, and we're already backyard gardening, and you studied botany and a whole bunch of other relevant things to growing food and sustainable food systems since. And I've always been fascinated with food systems and the connections with food and health. And I've grown food here at home in Kailua over the years where I grew up, and now I moved back here from LA after a long time in Los Angeles, where definitely is a place disconnected from the food kind of supply chain in a hyper paved over metropolitan environment. But at the same time, LA has a great abundance of awesome farmers markets because California has a huge agricultural community, and they support their agricultural community there much.
And some pretty cool urban gardening,
For sure.
kind of like guerrilla gardening stuff popping up.
Yeah, and that kind of thing is really cool and happening more and more places, and happening here in on Oahu, and those are things we have been talking about doing more and more of, trying to engage our community. And right now I'm enrolled in a permaculture course, so I'm learning more about that. And anyway, as we were spending some time home here in Kailua at the house, in the summer of 2020, I believe, yeah. We were chilling here.
You were caretaking me in that
Oh, that's
summer.
true. That's true. Yeah, we were here at the house. We were eating a lot of, just trying to get back in touch with sourcing better food ourselves and learning more and more about health in all these different ways. Things that had always been important to us, but if COVID-19 and the era that is that story did anything for a lot of people, that is the huge benefit, is redirect us towards these conversations about regenerative health and sustainability and all the things. But yeah, you were going through a little bit of a health thing at the time, and we were here at home spending a lot of time. All of our family members were kind of, my family members who live here also were out of town at the time, so we were, it was a nice luxury to be able to just have the space to ourselves in the yard. And then one day, we were watching TV in the late afternoon, and we were just, I think actually we may have, no, was something on TV or were we chatting? I don't remember for sure. We were chatting. And I was looking at you, and you were right in front of the windows to our glass doors to the outside, and across our green lawn come striding these two really vibrant, beautiful chickens, seemingly out of nowhere, but it's always felt like a little bit of a dream and a manifestation that they showed up here kind of intentionally. We had talked about wanting chickens of our own, but didn't pull the trigger, so to speak, on that yet. And then one day they just walked into our backyard, and it immediately was kind of just, we weren't sure where they came from, right? So we weren't sure what to do. We let them stay in the yard at first and free range for a while, and got to know them a little bit. And soon they just kind of became our adopted chickens. And anything else you want to share about that?
Yeah.
That moment and getting them?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, well, pre them coming,
Yes.
I always had it in my mind that, like, I wanted a garden to be full of 3 things: flowers, bees, and chickens. And so we had been starting the garden, and we were working on flowers. I think a huge portion of my seed collection is flowers, as you know, like cut flowers and edible flowers. And I use a lot of flowers when I cook, and coming soon in my herbalism practice. And at that point, also, I think you and I hadn't really expressed verbally much about what we both wanted together, but the one thing I can recall actually both really saying out loud and passionately was that we really wanted chickens. But we also weren't really in a place to go get chickens, because I live in a condo full time, and you in town, nowhere to have chickens there. And then over here, it's, you know, it's not our yard really, so to like do anything on a more permanent basis, not knowing if we were gonna stay, it was just never the right time for us to go and like take on chickens.
Yeah.
But then these 2 chickens show up.
Yeah.
So funnily, because I remember just sitting there on the couch and you looking at me and chatting, and then you just kind of like totally disengaged from our conversation, and you're like, look behind you, look behind you.
Yeah, that's it.
I like half didn't know what to see. I was like, what is gonna be behind me?
Yeah.
I don't even know if I knew. I had no idea what was behind me, but then it was these two chickens, which we've since named Jelly and Bean.
You pretty much named them that almost
Instantly.
immediately, I feel like. And at first I was just kind of like, not that I didn't like it, I just, wanted to give them, I guess, a moment in our presence before committing to that. But it just, even later that day or the next morning, it just made complete sense. And
They're a Jelly and a Bean.
instinct was right.
They're a little unit. Yeah, I feel like actually I have a superpower about naming things. Names just come to me. And they were a Jelly and a Bean. And I think Jelly is a Jelly personality and Bean is a Bean personality.
Absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, this episode is going to be kind of us sharing stories and recollections from our time with Jelly and Bean. And then since we've added a few more chickens to the flock, and so stories about raising them from being babies, and just kind of expressing our joy and continued curiosity and learning. It's a journey for sure. All the farming, gardening, homesteading things are, and part of why I think want to do this is just to kind of share the joy of having these birds around and encourage other people to explore raising chickens if they have the space to do so. As you just alluded to, Jelly is a Jelly and Bean is a Bean. One of the most fun and rewarding and cool things about getting to know chickens is just how distinctive their personalities each are, and the ways they engage with each other and with their human friends, and the different sounds they make in different scenarios, and the just different idiosyncrasies of the ways they emote and share themselves with each other and with us. I'll intercut some video because we have lots of video of all the birds throughout this episode, little by little, just to share a little bit more of the specifics of what we're talking about. But that was an awesome day when they walked into the backyard, and my face just kind of went blank because I was dumbfounded, because we had pretty recently talked about making that step. But yeah, like you were saying, we didn't know also, for me, like I didn't know how much I was going to love it is a commitment, no doubt, raising chickens and being with them and making sure they're good and all the things, and making sure they have everything they need. But I didn't know how much I was going to love having them around.
You're a part of the flock.
Yeah.
You're the mama hen.
Yeah. I became chased around the yard by chickens almost within days, and I was hooked, just watching their little bodies flutter around after us and after each other. And then my favorite move that the babies do but Jelly and Bean don't do anymore is what I named the Matrix move, because they'll like sprint across the yard, sometimes in the same direction but usually like towards each other, and then do like a little circle and like a hop up in the air. I don't know if I have any of that on video, but it's just a fun little playful thing they do when they get to actually free range and be joyous chickens, which is something maybe we can chat a little bit about in this episode, is the different ways people raise chickens and the things we're trying to do to improve their habitat always. And
yeah, one of my favorite things that they do is I call it the sumo wrestler run. Because because sometimes they'll run really fast and like flap their wings to run, which is different, but like most of the time when they're running, it's just like this big like
yeah,
wobbly run.
Exactly. I always ask them, "Where's your arms?" when they run like that, because their wings are like their arms, but they just look like they're just like hiding somewhere in their body.
It's so cute. They're so cute.
Yeah. So yeah, when Jelly and Bean actually first showed up, we weren't 100% positive we were going to keep them because we, had to check in with the fam. We're not the only ones living here at the house.
And we were like, is someone going to come knock on our door asking if they've seen their chickens?
Exactly.
Because we should mention that in Hawaii, there's a ton of like rural, not rural, but what would you call them? Like just like wild chickens. But they're different. They're more of like these smaller, like, I don't know, what would you call them? Like pheasanty or something.
Almost like feral chickens, I guess. But
yeah, they're just small, dainty. They're not like
Right.
commercial egg layers,
Right.
But Jelly and Bean were. So they either manifested themselves materially in the backyard as a gift from the universe, or they probably came from someone's backyard who was keeping chickens and then somehow ended up in our yard.
Yeah, and the strangest thing is it's not like they were quiet chickens when they showed up. So, and I didn't remember hearing them like in any nearby yards. Like I didn't remember hearing any chickens in our in direct neighbors' yards, and nobody posted signs or came looking for them. And so, yeah, we just slowly kind of, they stayed. Also, that was kind of our game we were playing with them at first, is letting them completely have free range over the backyard. And if they stayed, then we'd
build them a house.
We'd keep taking care of them and get it. And since then, they have a nice coop in the backyard, and they still get to run around the whole yard a good bit. And so anything that brings you to? Do you want to talk a little bit more about Jelly and Bean? Any discoveries you remember we made as we were first learning about chickens when they first came that you think is important?
I remember when they first came, it was a really fun time. And I think this is kind of that realm you step into, like when you're in like the unfamiliar. And I just remember like sitting outside on a pool chair, and Jelly had hopped on the arm of the pool chair, and she was just staring at me with like those little chicken eyes, or like eye, because they only look at one at a time. So I just had a little jelly eye on me, and I was like staring at her, and she was staring at me, and we were just like trying to figure each other out. And I probably fell in love with her at that exact moment, and have been a chicken mom ever since.
Yeah.
I think she could feel my pure intrigue and like excitement for her. But I also feel like the same way of her to me. And I think that of all the chickens that we have now, Jelly and Bean are and will always be our little babies. And I feel like it's so funny because I feel like, of course it was two. Of course it was two chickens that came into the backyard. And funny enough, I always joke about how like Jelly has more of my personality and Bean has a little more of your personality. And so I do think that they're really funny and cute because they're like this little dynamic duo, you know?
Yeah. And from day one, it was just so, I mean, having never raised chickens myself, I didn't know exactly what to expect on the dynamics between them, but those two like went everywhere together, and still do though, and just would chase each other around and sometimes be a little aggressive, playful, but for the most part, especially when they were younger, they just were like lovebirds together, which was amazing because as we know also now, especially chickens can get a little heated and peck at each other a lot. And
Not them, they were best friends.
They were best friends. And yeah, it was just really special because like I had already enormously kind of increased how much I valued being in the garden and growing food for myself and us and beyond family, and then community is the big dream, to grow more food for more people. But and I had set my, we had set our intentions on expanding that from there. And yeah, we had voiced to each other that we really wanted to include chickens in that. And once after they showed up, it just kind of reinvigorated all of that, even on a more heightened level, because I just loved being out there with him and learning from them, because the way they engage with the garden and the plants and the soil and the bugs and all the things just calls up a lot and gets you to like investigate a lot yourself too. And so that was just very rewarding. And I think that, we didn't have a permanent place for them to live at first, so we kind of makeshifted under our lilikoi bush.
Well, first they lived on the hot tub for a long time.
That's
and
right.
I think it's funny
I
because the
jumped.
baby chicks like the hot tub too. All the chickens love sleeping on the hot tub, which the hot tub has a padded cover on it, so they're not sleeping like on the edge of a wet hot tub. It's
Right.
like a covered hot tub, but
Yeah.
that's their favorite spot.
It is funny. And I wonder if it's partially because it's blue or something. Like, it just, I don't know. There's
Or
like,
it's warm. I
yeah,
don't know.
it's a little warm.
I mean, my cats always sleep on warm things. If anything was warm, they love sleeping on it.
I mean, chickens perch to sleep, so they sleep off the ground, and that became their spot. Jelly and Bean nightly right away, and that's how we kind of knew they were staying. They just kept sleeping there, and then running around in the morning. I would go out to check in the morning. Are they still there?
Yeah, right. I remember that. Are they still there?
I would have been so sad if they weren't.
Well, I remember too, like even maybe that first week, or definitely by the second week, but very early on, we would maybe, I don't remember where we were leaving to, but we would leave to go somewhere, and then we would like come back and like check the backyard and be like, where are they? I remember
Exactly.
one time we had like a scare where we couldn't find them, and I like almost had a meltdown, because at that point I had already like basically fallen so in love with them that if they had moved on, I would have been sad.
Yeah.
But we found them.
Yeah.
They were behind some bush, I think.
Yeah, they would find all these little nooks and places to just kind of sneak off and be comfy and nap. And that's what chickens love doing, is finding little cozy corners to sleep. And then they'll come out and scratch the heck out of your garden and go back and find that corner. But yeah, I mean, I remember sprinting around the backyard many a time after coming home, not quite being able to find them, in a panic, like to one corner where I knew where they usually were. And then like one day they were just right outside the back door, basically off to the side a little bit. But I had like ran all over the yard checking the usual spots. Any ideas for where to take next? I have a couple things that I want to share. One is something I wrote, and then one is from Alice Walker's The Chicken Chronicles, but we could save those things for a little later, maybe.
Go for it.
Okay, let's do this. You got me this past Christmas after having Jelly and Bean for a couple of years, 2 years? Yeah, about 2 years. And then the babies were not laying eggs yet, but we had them a few months, or maybe only a few weeks at that point. But if you don't know Alice Walker's work, she's a very celebrated writer and activist, and this book she wrote as a blog post initially.
Will you say the title for the audio?
Oh, sorry, I thought I did.
No.
I should definitely read the full title. This is The Chicken Chronicles by Alice Walker, and the subtitle is Sitting with the Angels Who Have Returned with My Memories, Glorious, Rufus, Gertrude Stein, Splendor, Hortensia, Agnes of God, the Gladyses, and Babe, a memoir. Thanks for that important note. So I've been reading it fairly slow while I've been reading some other things, but I just read this chapter 15, The Old Fox. The book is basically, her, it's kind of like it is a memoir. It's a memoir of her time getting to know her chickens and the joys she has had with her chickens. It's written kind of like in the first person to her chickens each chapter, which started out as blog posts and then eventually were completed in book form. And so it's a lot of anytime she says you in this, she's addressing the reader in a way, but she is really talking to her chickens. And I'll just leave it at that for now. And I have some things to chime in maybe in the middle. We can, if you have anything even to say to interrupt. But it's a couple pages, but it's not too long. The Old Fox. One of the books I would like to read to you is the I Ching. I love it for its profound observation of non-human animals. It does a marvelous job of understanding humans too, of course, but it is remarkable in its grasp of how much we learn from our cousins who study and comprehend us, but cannot, in human language, speak. For instance, there is the story of the old fox crossing an ice-covered pond on tiptoe because she knows the ice may break. She is fine till she almost reaches the other side. Then the ice breaks. She falls in, which would mean drowning, but instead, because she has been careful, she only gets her tail wet. This is to say that Mommy being Alice Walker to her chickens, this is to say that Mommy, having traveled from the most southern part of India, Kerala, very hot, to the most northern part, the foothills of the Himalayas, very cold, had avoided getting sick until the very last day of her visit. And, my children, air pollution, a major health hazard in the urban world of humans, the atmosphere to my lungs in New Delhi and later Cairo looked like a thick dust made from your chicken mash, was a big factor also. But really, what is not amusing in this world, or at least thought-provoking once we stop coughing. So on the very next day to the last day, feeling fine, but tiptoeing across thin ice, high in the foothills of the Himalayas, almost on a lark, I accepted an invitation to consult a doctor of Tibetan medicine about some old health challenges I thought I'd already overcome. You will be happy to know that Mommy is basically healthy. That is because of our garden, which, with your rich poop, we shall continue into infinity. The most interesting thing he said, though, was that I must overcome a tendency to impatience. It turns out impatience is the thief of serenity. The moment he said this, I knew it was true. Even though I like to think I am the soul of patience, like most humans, I am most patient and serene when I'm alone. But guess what? Dharamsala, the locals say Dharamshala, is one big hill. By the time I'd climbed the hill to the clinic, even though, truthfully, we climbed it in a van, I'd already climbed hundreds of steps and stairs and wandered up a couple trails. And the air, very thin and with a needle-like cold embedded in even the sun, had hardly seemed sufficient to get me from one level to another. However, Mommy, having walked up so many hills, has a strategy, which is to walk up steep hills on a slant and sideways. The Tibetans who dash up and down their hills with the grace of mountain goats may have been amused at my way with hills, but another time when I return to visit them and they've aged a bit, I'll explain it to them. This way of climbing hills saves the knees. I meditated on what the Tibetan doctor said about my impatience and realized something to ponder. I am most impatient with people who don't think the way I do. This isn't the same feeling as impatient with the people who have different opinions. This isn't the same as feeling impatient with people who have different opinions. I like this for the challenge of it. No, I become impatient with people whose minds seem beamed from a completely different universe. In the world of astrology, one might say, oh, Cancers and Capricorns, maybe Librans. But it isn't as simple as that. My mind, I realize more calmly now as I enter late middle age, is the classic monkey mind. It is non-linear in the most profound way. In short, without training, it is capable of being all over the place. Like a real monkey, it seems to jump from imaginary branch to imaginary branch, and then, as if by magic, it lands where the nuts are, or the fruit. But this is why life gives us teachers, and you, my girls, have been very helpful to Mommy in this regard. I just want to pause right there because she's kind of gone on a tangent away from the chickens, and this is an entry she writes a lot of them when she's very present with them on the day-to-day. Sometimes I feel like she's even probably journaled while she's out sitting with them. She spends a lot of time writing about sitting with the chickens and observing them earlier on in the book. This is one when she's missing them on a trip, and so she's kind of drawing these connections to things she's learning on her trip, and doing some soul searching of her own on this trip. And this point right here, and as she's talking about patience, if there's anything the chickens have taught me, I too consider myself a fairly patient person. It's something I try to, without over focusing on it or any one thing, I think it's an important, I don't really love the word patience as a virtue, but I think it's an important thing to hold. And the chickens, in so many ways, as we'll share more stories, have taught me that above all things, just sitting and watching them be, and that life can be a lot more simple than humans often make it and complicate it. And I'll stop there for now and continue on.
Eating, sleeping, and laying eggs. What else you gotta do?
Exactly. Squawking, singing, running, jumping, flying. Flying. We can't do that, but. And you, my girls, have been very helpful to Mommy in this regard. Remember when, after Glorious was eaten up by the chicken hawk? She lost one of her chickens to a chicken hawk. It was a very sad
So glad we don't have chicken
entry.
hawks.
Yeah, one of the, speaking of anxiousness though, I guess, that's the one thing about chickens is always, and here in Hawaii it's really nice because we don't have a lot of chicken predators
Dogs.
compared to some places. Yeah, we do have a lot of dogs, so there are things to worry about for the safety of our chickens, but it's not as rough as some other places. Remember when, after Glorious was eaten up by the chicken hawk and Mommy was withdrawing from you out of fear and sorrow, and we humans thought bringing in more chickens would help us all feel better? Remember that? E and L and G and Mommy had a long, by chicken terms, collaboration. How to do this? Would the old chickens get along with the new ones? E thought we should introduce one new chicken at a time, but I thought no. One new chicken probably wouldn't last long from what I had been reading about in my chicken manual. I thought we should...
You gotta have a chicken manual.
Yeah, that if anything, it
helps.
Yeah.
Backyardchickens.com.
Backyardchickens.com. We found a lot of amazing people and resources through Backyard Chickens and YouTube and the like who have taught us a lot, especially in terms of leaning into raising them as naturally and organically and holistically as we can. And we're very grateful to a lot of the information that's been put out there and continues to be. And no, I'll put a pin in that. You cannot just introduce one new chicken at a time.
No.
We didn't try it. We did 4, but that was its own thing. Anyway, here we go. I thought we should bring in the whole gang of new chickens, and in their numbers, they could duke it out with the gang of chickens already established in the chicken house.
Good call.
Ultimately, this is what we did. We introduced 6 new chickens at once, the Red Gang of 6. Oh, the way you treated them. I was heart-sickened. I was appalled. I had only known you as gentle and cuddly, blissed out on Chardonnay grapes and kale leaves.
So true.
You were vicious to your new mates. You pecked and scratched them. You wouldn't let them near the food and water. You didn't want Mommy to be Mommy to anyone other than you. When I tried to share goodies with the Red Gang of 6, you wouldn't allow it unless I forced you out of the way. I was so embarrassed for you.
Yeah.
It's so good because it's if you
I just have
know,
all these visuals of Bean being meanie beanie. Just
yeah,
being like, Bean, why? Why? You're not this mean to any.
exactly. If you know, you
Not
know.
a good look, Bean.
If you've had your own chickens, and especially if you've had an established flock and introduced some new chickens, you know exactly it's funny, but it's also like, it's not funny in some of the moments. I was like, I couldn't believe it. I still can't believe how mean they are sometimes. It's calmed down a little bit though, as the babies have gotten older and older, and now a couple of them are laying eggs. Spoiler alert. Let's continue on here. It's almost done. I was so embarrassed for you. Were these the children I thought I was raising? But guess what? From your point of view as chickens, you were doing what comes naturally to chickens. You were creating the pecking order that chickens live by. My impatience with your behavior led to a withdrawal from you. I felt disappointed and deeply saddened. This made me stay away for days, at least 2. When I went back to visit, you were still at it, mean as could be. Abusive and ugly. Yes, ugly. Mommy found this brutalizing behavior so hideous she could hardly look at you. And when you jumped into her lap wanting a cuddle, sometimes she stood up. It was this event when she felt she could simply not bear you in your meanness that was probably the most serious threat to Mommy's health and heart. That moment of pushing you away while you looked at Mommy as if she'd lost her mind was the flowering of impatience.
Good one. I haven't actually read this book, so that was a treat for me.
Nice.
I'm
Yeah.
a big fan of hers, though.
Yeah,
That's why I
she's
bought that
great.
for you. I'm
Yeah.
gonna read it next.
She's great. Yeah, I need to, it's all the chapters are kind of easy to read, but also well written, like great word choice and funny in places, but also like real, just very real and beautiful. And that's what our experience has been with Jelly and Bean, and then with the new baby chicks. And anytime we've been away from them, and which hasn't been for a long, long period of time yet, no more than a few days or a week, it's been tough. But should we get into a little bit of healing time?
Yeah, but before, I just want to make
Yeah,
a comment that,
please.
like, when you, I was thinking about this so far throughout this chat, where, like, we do learn things from other creatures and beings, and there's, like, a little relationship to be had, but I think, and Alice Walker refers to these chickens as her children a lot, and I mean, they so are. Like, they're just your little babies. And I think anyone who's had, like, a dog or a cat that really becomes part of your family, chickens can be the exact same way. And they're not like a cat and they're not like a dog. They're like a chicken. And it's such, like, a interesting relationship. And when it comes to, like, different backyard bird pets, like farm style, and there's different egg layers you can have. Like, a lot of people can go into getting quails because they're smaller and really quiet. So if you're worried about, like, having like not enough space but you have a yard, like, quails might be a good thing, but I don't know quails. And, like, I love ducks, but, like, duck energy is very different from chicken energy too. Like, they just have this presence about them that is so unique and special and hilarious. Like, I always make this joke too of, like, if you're ever bored in life, just get a chicken. Like, they will, I promise you, they'll bring you joy and laughter and give you purpose and something to care for. And their personalities can be different, as we'll discuss with our other chickens. But it's just one of the coolest endeavors to embark on is, like, yeah, getting to know chickens. Like, they're just the best.
Yeah. I mean, when people talk about emotional support animals,
Yeah.
It's like, they are exactly what I think about. I mean, dogs and cats are beautiful and great and can do that and can live with you more closely than a chicken can. Because a chicken, you certainly can't train to not poop all over the dang place. They are a poopy,
or if someone has,
creature.
I want to know how they did it.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember reading this article one time about, I think it was like this old folks home that ended up, they would get chickens for the residents because they found that like it just increased their quality of life so much that when they had something to like go out and care for. And it reminds me of like, the Blue Zones Project stuff, or like, the China study or whatever, where it's like, these cultures where people live really long lives, like food stuff aside, like they live well because they have a role in their community and they're active, but like no one's just sitting at home by themselves watching TV, They're like these 100-year-old Italian grandmas like in the garden like hoeing the earth.
Yeah.
And so I think chickens is like a really great companion. Like they really are, I think, companions. They're not just food sources. They're friends and family.
Absolutely. Yeah. Jelly and Bean, we I said already that they showed up in the summer of 2020. I think it was
Late summer.
Early August when they showed up. And we calculated, because they weren't baby chicks when we got them, that they were probably born around May-ish or so, which means they're coming up on 3 years old here this coming May 2022. And so that made them about 4-ish, maybe close to 5 months old. No, maybe only 3 to 4 months old. Yeah, 3 to 4 months old when they showed up, because then they started laying a couple months later, which is about typical for chickens, somewhere between 19 and 23 or so, 24 weeks, is when they start, the egg layers start laying eggs. And so we were learning as much as we could once they showed up, and
Yeah, because just for the record, how confusing is it to like start caring for a chicken when I'm the type of person that wants to know everything. I'm like, okay, here we go. What are their internal organs look like? What's going on here, Because it's not like a cat and a dog. You have to like feed them rocks. Like I did not know that before I was a chicken keeper.
Exactly.
Like they eat rocks.
What, they eat rocks? Like I knew they ate bugs and dirt, but they eat rocks.
Yeah.
Which is the only way their digestion works, especially the more they're foraging and free ranging. And eating all sorts of different things in the garden. They
like
need
when Bean
rocks.
eats a frog.
Yeah, or a giant centipede.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have these huge centipedes here in Hawaii that will sting you and probably could take down a chicken, at least like make them very debilitated, if not kill them. And on multiple occasions, I've seen them ripping a centipede to shreds with their beaks and just slamming it on the ground, because a bigger bug, that's how they have to kind of break it up and try to kill it before they eat it.
That's how they eat geckos too.
It is, yeah.
It's so crazy.
And when they find something prized like that, they will chase each other. One will have it in their mouth and they will chase each other all over.
It's a little tail hanging out.
One of the joys of watching chickens play is that back and forth, when one of them finds something really, really good to eat.
I have a funny story of Jelly and Bean. It was like we were gardening and we were digging up a garden bed and we found these big giant beetle grubs. And if you've seen these beetle grubs, they definitely look like a chicken's favorite treat, and they are. So we were like finding all of them that we could in the soil. We were keeping them in this little tray to bring over to Jelly and Bean, because at that point when we were actively gardening, we were like, no, go stay in a little pen over here. And so we go to feed them to Jelly and Bean. We were so excited, you and I, because we were like, oh yeah, like we brought them some really tasty snacks. They're gonna be so happy. And then we like give them the treats, and then now I'm forgetting if it was Jelly or Bean that took one and like didn't want to share, so they like ran into the bush to like eat it by themselves.
Yeah.
And then whoever stayed back got to eat like 10.
4 more. Yeah, 10 more, a bunch more.
It was
Yeah, that's
so
right.
funny.
I don't remember which one does it, because they both do that move where they'll like grab one and run away.
Yeah, I feel like it was Jelly.
I feel like it was.
But like it's funny because now for sure Jelly always gets more of the food, and Bean kind of like is secondary to food stuff.
Well, it seemed like they were fairly even in their own duo pecking order early on. Jelly has definitely kind of established herself as the top bird in our flock.
Jelly is top dog.
Top dog.
But she's so nonchalant about it.
She is.
Like, I feel like if you didn't know them, you wouldn't necessarily know, because, you know, the little baby chicks come around and she's like not bothered.
Yeah.
Bean like throws a fit. She's like, yeah, whatever. But she is top dog.
She is. She very much is. I guess that can bring us to kind of setting up their coop, and we can get into a little bit more of our history. They both got a little sick in at the end of 2020 and beginning of 2021, and we have some definitely stories to share about that.
Well, before we get sad, like, let's talk about their first little coop that at the beginning I thought was a totally genius idea. I was like, why has no one ever done this before? Where we had a lilycoid trellis that kind of made these 2 natural like arches, and we kind of just like capped off the ends, and then that was their little house. We would just like put a perch in there and got them eventually to sleep on the perch underneath it. And then we made just like a little raised 5-gallon bucket place for them to lay eggs. And they would run around the yard, and then when they needed to be put inside and contained, we would like put them into their little housey. And they loved it, sort of, at least, because they could eat all the lilycoid leaves and weren't in direct sun, and it worked out pretty well. And I have videos on my phone of this first day. I remember waking up, it was early, and I heard them sing their egg laying song for the first time, and this was when they had the lilycoid trellis house. And I was like, oh my god, they're like singing, and I feel like today is gonna be the day that they lay their first egg. And it was.
Yeah.
I think it was Jelly laid the first egg.
I don't remember.
I have it
for
on footage. I'll
sure.
find it.
It might have been Bean. Maybe I missed Jelly laying the egg. The first one I got good footage of with my camera was Bean, but yeah, it might have been Jelly that laid first. Yeah, the egg laying song. That's one of the kind of amazing things about getting to know chickens is their language. Is they have like a vocal vernacular, if you will. They have like a specific call for when one of their friends is laying eggs. Typically they'll do it when one of the other chickens is laying eggs, but Bean are just, you know, she just has such a funny personality, really. Like, she's kind of like this Eeyore like character in a way, like just kind of like mopey, and she'll like while Jelly will make little quiet like noises like high pitch. Well, I'll try to play one for you. That's better than me. Bean will come in like like an angry duck. And but Bean will also.
But she's so sweet.
She is so sweet. Yeah.
To Jelly and to humans.
She
not
is.
to the other chicks.
Right. Not to the baby chicks. She has been quite the pest to the baby chicks. Loves chasing the shit out of the baby chicks, pecking them, and
That's where she got the nickname Meanie Beanie.
Meanie Beanie.
Never before was she Meanie Beanie.
No.
She was
No.
Beanie Baby.
Beanie Baby. Oh, right. I don't even call her that anymore. I just
No,
call her
'cause she's
Meanie
Meanie
Beanie. She's still my Beanie Baby, though. She's mostly just calm and sweet, but with those babies, she likes to assert her place in the pecking order. It will be interesting to see how that all evens out as the 4 baby chicks establish themselves a little bit more in the coop. They've now been in there about 22 weeks, I just estimated, I think. So
They've not been in the coop 22 weeks.
no, but they're 22 weeks old. They're 22 weeks old. No.
They've been in the coop with Jelly and Bean for like a month.
Well, more than a
half?
month.
2 months? A month and a half, 2 months?
2 months probably, yeah.
But then most of that they weren't sleeping together. But how long
Right.
have they been sleeping together?
True. About a month. I'd have to look up. Should I look it up?
No, it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
It's still new. It was all my point.
Yeah.
They haven't been sleeping
Right.
together for years. They
No. Yeah.
they're new bedmates.
Totally. And I think some people, as Alice Walker rightly instinctually went with, we decided to introduce 4 babies to our 2 established babies, which gave them a fighting chance, because as soon as we did introduce them to the run, which we did first, we would introduce them through the fence at first, and that's what a lot of people recommend, is just when they're babies, let them see each other so they know there are other chickens around, and then slowly, eventually we put them in the coop with them, and then in the run. And pretty much right away, though, Jelly and Bean wanted to go after them and would chase them, and the baby chicks.
We let them. Sorry, just
No,
to
yeah.
be accurate, we let them like free range out in the garden together and stuff before we
Right.
put them in the run together.
Thank you.
So they had.
That's true.
We introduced them very slowly. Like Jelly and Bean knew there were chicks around. We'd bring the crate around. They could hear them and see them
Yeah.
and stuff. But like, we were a little cautious with.
Yeah.
Mostly because Bean from the get-go was like
Yeah.
very interested in those
A
birds.
little too interested.
And for the record too, Bean has murdered non-chicken birds.
Yes. We have a incredible pigeon infestation just because there's so many of these specific to Hawaii pigeons that live in the trees around our property, and they love the food and chicken atmosphere in our yard, and so they are all over the place all the time and get trapped inside of our coop because we have a little small chicken door to let Jelly and Bean and the babies now into the run from the coop, and these birds will get in through that little door and then won't be able to figure out how to get out. And so it gets kind of crazy in there. And yeah, Bean has killed at least 2 that I know of, but possibly more than that. And so
we were like, let's be on the cautious side. So Bean,
Right.
since she's now a bird murderer,
Yeah, since she
doesn't
has
murder
that
any of the chicks.
energy, exactly. So yeah, we set up that temporary. What we always knew was probably going to be temporary-ish for their coop under the lilikoi trellises, the arched lilikoi trellises.
Not a good idea long term because they got too wet when it would rain. Like it did. They were thick lilikoi, so they didn't get soaking wet. It was a pretty good shelter, but they needed a lot more.
Yeah.
Going for them.
Yeah. We were feeding them seed and grain mixture that I found an organic recipe online for mixing your own seed and grain and what to add to it to make sure they're getting enough nutrients and the like. And so that's what we began feeding them.
But they also ate a lot of pellet food. moistened pellet
moistened
food.
pellet food. Yeah. And fruit. We would give them some fruit sometimes, and they loved the leaves, and they especially, need to eat greens and things like that, and bugs to be healthiest. So we would try as much as possible to let them keep running around the yard. But the winter months came, and it was actually a very wet winter. And that winter, and in November and December it rained a lot, and so they weren't perfectly protected under there, and our systems for water and food weren't quite for making sure they had clean water and food and a sustainable system for that, for administering the food to them. I take full responsibility for that kind of not being ideal. There are other factors that may have for sure led to them both ending up getting sick at the end of 2020, but it was one of the hardest times of the last couple of years. You were going through a sort of health thing in the summer when they showed up, and we kind of felt like we were coming to the other end of that. And then suddenly one morning, Jelly was just not moving around very much, and I had just never seen her like that, and her eyes were puffy, and she was very slow, and within 24 hours her condition worsened quite a bit, and we started immediately doing as much further chicken research as we could, and she was hanging her head fully over and eyes fully closed. And
yeah, if no one's ever seen a really sick chicken, it's really scary. Like, they look dead, basically.
Yeah. It's hard to quite describe, but if you're watching, I recommend watching the video of all of our podcasts, but definitely this one, because we're going to share mostly happy, fun videos of the chickens and stuff, but we'll also share some of this process. And that was really hard. She continued to sort of seem to get worse and worse over the first few days. This was around Christmas Day that she first Christmas Day 2020, when she first exhibited signs of being lethargic and not doing too good. And she wasn't drinking or eating after a day or moving around much at all. She would maybe jump up on her little makeshift perch we had for her under the lilikoi, but she would also sleep on the ground a lot more. And she would barely ever open her eyes, especially 2 or 3 days into it. And I remember, one night after we had looked up a bunch of things already and were trying to look into remedies and ways to encourage her to drink and eat and the like. One of our chickens is walking by outside right now. And I think, we were talking, and I don't remember what you asked me, but something about, because I was kind of lost for words and expressing to you that I just didn't know what to do. And you said something like, well, do you want to save her or something like that? And I just broke down crying as hard as I've probably cried about much of anything over the last few years. Because I knew that I wanted to do everything I could for her, because even in that pretty short time, they had just gifted us, as we've already chatted about a bit, so much. This might be a good time for me to share a little video that I recorded about a week into her getting sick. In fact, I think I might play that right now. And then pick it back up.
I don't even know what video you're talking about.
I had never shared it with you. I don't think even with you. I don't think I ever watched it back, even. Okay. Just deciding to record this in the moment.
That's sad.
Happy New Year, y'all. Happy 2021. I'm a little emotional right now. In 2020, we all had a tough year, but we all had, I know, some amazing gifts and some realignments. And one of my greatest gifts was the day that these two lovebirds walked into our lives. And I'm emotional because for the last week or so, Jelly's gotten really sick. And I've been as good of a chicken tender companion, raiser, whatever term you want to put on it, as I can. These are the first chickens that I've had the pleasure of befriending deeply and raising. While they've been really sick, right now they're doing what they do best: hang out and forage together in between naps. There's Beanie, who just started today to show more definitive signs of also being sick. But this is the most walking around and activity I've seen Jelly, this lovely lady over here, emit and do in the last 5 or 6 days. And so the energy I'm feeling is on the up and up, and I'm gonna keep being present and listen to them both and love them both and learn from them both. And what they have both made me realize is that I am called into this farming life. And I'm sorry this video is all over the place, but I needed to record my words and get a few images of them. Now some better images of the chickies.
And then Bean got real sick.
Yeah. That was, New Year's Day 2021. And Bean had showed a little signs of being not too good the day before, but I wasn't sure if it was just like she was a little extra sleepy or something like that. But sure enough, she was sick also.
Chick's trying to get our attention at
This-
the door.
Hi, Chick. I know you want to be on the show the most, probably.
She does. Maybe later, Chickie.
Last episode I shared a little bit from the Artist's Way, which encourages a meditative activity she calls morning pages, which is, lots of people journal in the morning, but she's very both specific about it as a tool, but then also like encourages you to not have a hard format or like prompts or things like that, but just to like let whatever comes up in the morning and for you to come out and to just kind of free write and let emotions shed and ideas and thoughts pour out. If you have a creative idea, use it to explore that, do some poetry, whatever it might be. And so on December 30th, 2020, the day before that video, I wrote this, which I also just wanted to share with you and with everybody. Jelly, my girl, is sick. This is day 3 of nearly constant hibernation and fasting. I am doing my best to be present and loving while getting her to try to consume some hydrating and medicinal liquids. This morning, she stayed on her perch extra long and was the least receptive to water helped up to her beak since she started being ill. I have learned so much from her already, and I am here to propel our bond into the future. She is meant for so much more life. It was so hard. It's just, if you've raised chickens, especially if you've raised them backyard like we have, and you get to know each one kind of intimately. And then you watch them go to this completely catatonic place, and she was, for like 24 to 48 hours, she was like that. And this is without even talking about Bean yet, who was catatonic and very lethargic, like for weeks, basically a full month, because she was getting sick around the first of the year, and she didn't start showing true signs of getting better until February.
I remember specifically asking you, do you think Bean will be better by my birthday, which is February 23rd? So it was she had a rough time. I still don't know if she's ever fully recovered.
Yeah, and she has, I don't think she quite has, and it's where, like, you know, I think healing and health is always an ongoing journey and process, and the way to healing is through relationship as much as it is any one specific remedy. And I know it's my focus now and from then on, but more and more every day I just want to try to do everything I can to make their home happy and peaceful and safe, but encourage them to be as healthy for as long as they possibly can, as healthy as they can be for as long as possible. She will rest today in the warmth of a beautiful Hawaii winter day. The skies have cleared after a moderately cool night. I believe that's why she is extra hunkered down. It was a little cold. When the sun is overhead in an hour or two, shining that low winter southeastern sun across our yard, Jelly will begin to engage with that warmth, that light, and her BFF Bean. She will gain sparks of life as she takes in more and more energizing liquids. Today I will feed her electrolyte water, kombu broth, coconut water, and lactic acid bacteria water. I will every so often dab them with doses of OHN diluted in water. OHN is a Korean natural farming tincture made from a whole bunch of herbal plants: angelica, ginger, turmeric, garlic, licorice. Might be forgetting one, but those are the main ones. Mostly I will listen to Jelly. She clearly told me she wanted space and not to forcibly drink. Letting her rest deeper into the morning as the day is still calm will let her repair, rebirth, regenerate, revitalize. When that light fills her life and hits her eyes, she will be lifted into desires for water and food and play. She will embody her true self. She will run around the yard. What does that say? We will run around the yard together. She will perch on the highest perch. We will talk and we will chill together as the sun goes down. I will build them a beautiful new home. I will love her and care for her and their home as though it were my own. When that light hits, and even as I pour my heart and thoughts out onto these pages, that light is beginning to break through our tree line. It is nearly reaching the edges of the home where Jelly and Bean live, where Jelly now rests her young, strong, beautiful body into a place of new life and greater resiliency. She will drink and gain enough ecstasy to jolt her into some play and foraging by day's end. And tomorrow will bring more rest and more fluids. And I will continue to stay the course, trust the process, and with that balance, letting her have full peace and rest with showing her deep care, love, and reverence, getting her the nutrients and hydration her beautiful soul needs. And thanks to you and, just your dedication to learning as much and being there with me as much through the process of healing them, and our bond kind of growing with them during that moment in a way. is a beautiful thing to reflect back on, because I knew somewhere in my heart of hearts that together we were going to pull them both through, even as dark as it...
Didn't feel like it in many moments.
Oh, for sure. It was hard.
But yeah, neither of us accepted that as like a finality.
Yeah.
I remember thinking too, like, oh man, why does it have to be Jelly? Because Jelly was my favorite.
Yeah.
And then I fucking wanted to take that back because Bean got sick, and Bean got super sick. Jelly was on the mend. Do you remember the exact moment she was feeling better? I remember this moment where she just like jumped off the ground, and we were like, she's gonna be okay.
Yeah, I mean, when they get sick, as you'll see in some of the videos I intercut here, I mean, they are very, I think catatonic just is the right words.
Like their heads droop down, so you can move their heads, like they're like completely limp. There's like
and their eyes like completely
zombies.
fold over to the, I mean, they have these lids always, and they will blink them real quick to really clean their eyes, but for the most part they have two lids, one that goes up and one that goes down, and the one that goes down they use when they like are in deep sleep at night. But if they're like doing that constantly for long periods of time during the day, it means they're not doing too good. And their eyes were also puffy, and
from what I know about chickens sleeping too, like they always kind of, the ones at the ends kind of keep watch and like basically sleep with one eye open. Mm-hmm. And so for a chicken to like not be watching their environment and to be like completely drawn into themselves is like, it's just not, I think, in their... Well, I mean, it is in their nature because that's what they do when they're sick. But, like, they're basically, like, extra super vulnerable at that point. And on top of it, when you start learning about just, like, chickens, like they just are vulnerable. And they're really prone to, like, respiratory things because of their anatomy. And it's, like, the way that it's configured in there. And I don't remember...
And because they're just spending so much time in the soil. So there's just so many factors that can come in.
When you know, I think chickens can like have the same symptoms for a few things. So like we never knew what was wrong, like quote unquote wrong with them other than they were sick. Like, and that was pretty scary because at first we were just like, did one of them eat rat poison from the neighbors? Like, because we don't use that, but the neighbors around us do some sketchy stuff. Did they like get into like pesticide runoff from the next door neighbors? Did they, which is horrible, but yeah, they haven't fully really stopped using pesticides no matter how much we complain or ask them to. And then like, what did they eat? Did they get stung by a centipede? I think we ruled that one pretty much out, but it's like, you don't really know. And so I think what I've also learned from that though is like to an extent it doesn't really matter because you can care for them the same ways. And it's like caring for humans too. It's slightly different, but like, you know, you really want to make sure that they're hydrated with like a good electrolyte water. And if they are only drinking and then there's periods where they really don't, like let them not drink, but then monitor them. And like I think if we just let Bean live in the backyard during that whole time and didn't tend to her, she totally would have died because not drinking. And I mean, she lost weight during that time. Like if we weren't giving her constant hydration, even if that's like the only thing, and sometimes we would have to like really get her to open her beak, which was sad, and we tried to pretty much not ever do that as much as we could.
We learned about that with Jelly, that we might have to like force her beak open, but because Jelly recovered in about a week, we never had to quite go there. I would like force her by like putting a spoon of, this is where you like learn a lot of wild things about chickens, and but it also makes sense, though, some of these wild things, but one of the best things to feed them when they're sick are egg yolks, because it contains, like, it's the fruit of their body, basically, so it contains, like, everything they need. Now, you don't want to feed your sick chickens their own eggs, but get a good egg from a healthy
also
chicken.
when they're sick, they mostly pretty much stop laying.
Right.
And that's one good for anyone who's new to chickens. That's a good thing to know, is like you can tell because they'll stop laying eggs and you're like, oh, here we go.
Yeah, yeah. And Bean has, as you said, like, Bean has maybe not quite ever fully recovered, and, you know, being down for a full month, and really isolated from Jelly for a full month too. For a little while they were sick together, but then we kind of kept them apart for a long time, and so she spent a lot of time eyes closed and not moving much, but eventually, weeks later, she slowly started sipping on more water, and yeah, like you were saying, we had to pry her beak open and shoot her with an eyedropper with, like, watered down egg yolks and just electrolyte water plain at times, but eventually the egg yolk water is what kind of got her to start wetting her palate, so to speak, and, like, kind of it seemed like that got her to eventually go after some water and food on her own.
Papayas.
Papayas. They love papayas. They have always loved papayas, but, like,
When you have some sick chickens, give them papayas.
If you can
I don't
give
know if
them
that's just a
papaya.
Hawaii chicken thing or what, but that's for a long time. That's the only thing Bean would eat was papaya. And it makes sense. I think it's so soft that she can actually eat it. It doesn't hurt her throat or anything. Because, like, also when they're sick, she'd do this weird throat thing.
Right.
And so, like, you want to be mindful of that. Also, we would make, I called it, like, sick chicken water, basically. But it's, like, we do mega diluted, but, like, diluted apple cider vinegar with raw garlic. That helps.
Yeah.
Those are, like, some of the main staples that we can mention. We tried a lot of stuff, but those seem to work pretty well, and I think are used across the board.
When Jelly sprang, with that moment where Jelly kind of went from still being catatonic to sudden life, I had just fed her a spoonful of lactic acid bacteria and OHN, which also has garlic and all the other herbs in there that I mentioned, diluted in water. And she, like, had a couple sips of it. She had already been eating little bits of papaya and maybe some egg yolk and starting to drink little bits of water. But then a day or two into that, she had, like, a sip of this, and then suddenly she, like, flapped her wings, hopped off the ground, like, in, like, this moment of, like, just total reinvigoration, like it was magic. And speaking of magic, that's another thing, like, we kind of brought into this healing process, which we did a tarot reading for card pull for when Jelly was sick, which is where the part where I wrote in here, stay the course and trust the process. The card I pulled was trust the process, which to me just rang so true. But one of my mentors of sorts, a friend that I was the assistant coach for high school tennis and middle school tennis at a high school in California before I moved back. And my friend and boss and mentor, Travis, loved the phrase, trust the process. He would say it all the time, and the kids would make fun of him because he said it so much, just trust the process. Like, but it ingrained in that way. And in a team and communal environment, I think, and in a healing and care-centered environment, just like a sports team, though, like, that's what you want. You want to be able to lean on the people around you and trust that you're doing the right thing. And I think that energy can be very helpful when you're trying to take care of a sick loved one, whether they're a chicken or a friend or partner or parent. Just trust what we already know, and know that also there's a lot, especially in this day and age, there's so much information out there about health and healing for animals and humans. And we were able to take advantage of a lot of that. We did some homeopathy for Bean especially, because hers was long. And chickens wake up at the crack of dawn, and I am not a morning person. And so
yeah, you were during that time. You were like always up with them.
Yeah. For that whole month of January when Bean was sick, I was up before sunrise prepping her little various weird concoctions and options for maybe she might eat this today, maybe she might drink this today.
And we would give her little warm baths, which I would just like to say, as hard as that was to go through, because I also remember a point where I was looking at these backyard chicken forums and like just reading over and over and over like, oh yeah, when they look like that, you gotta cull them, you gotta kill them.
Yeah.
Which was really sad. I was like, I don't want to be reading this on backyardchickens.com. Like, who says that? Who says they're just going to kill them? But that's a big perspective still. It's like some people who have these even like backyard farms or homestead operations. And I want to be really clear when I say this because I eat chicken. I'm probably going to have meat birds in the future, and there's a difference. And I would love to do like an episode on kind of like ethical meat eating and hunting, and start having these more interesting and nuanced discussions between like different diets and what's really compassionate and what's not, and humane and what's not. But like to see that made me really sad because I mean, Jelly and Bean are our family, but they also do give us eggs, and that's a big reason that people have chickens and why they're in the backyard. But for me to see someone just say like, oh, you gotta kill them because they'll just keep getting sick or something, it's just really sad. Like that was never our answer. So Anyway, we were like giving Bean hot baths and like and as rough as it was, we stuck through it. And I think through all of that, it was also really beautiful because we really were like, I think anyone who's been, I mean, I've never been pregnant, but it felt really like when you're in that like postpartum period, or like, I always think of it as like the cocoon period. When you're in the cocoon period after any sort of like, being sick, post-surgery, like after you've had a miscarriage, like after you've given birth, like there's this space you enter into where like you don't experience time. Like the outside world doesn't really matter at all. Like it's just like what's right in front of you, and you like it's like this warped feeling and sensation that you like live in and becomes like your reality and perception. And so in some regards we were in this with the chickens. And it was really precious, though, like the moments where we were able to be so intimate with them, because our chickens now would never, like, they're so wild feeling, like they just have these wild personalities. Some people can get their chickens to like sit on their laps and stuff. I don't know how they do that because those are not any of our chickens.
Yeah.
But in those moments we could give Bean a warm bath, and like you could tell that she liked it. It was not a start. She would like actually like release into the bath and just let us like hold her in there. And like those moments were really special, just like holding her little tiny head like in my hand and just like supporting her head like that. Like it was just so sweet, and we never ever would have been able to experience that.
Yeah.
And I think that it definitely brought our bond closer together. And
Definitely.
Chick is trying to get our attention again.
It's yeah, Chick is up on the table right outside. Hi, Chick.
We've been chatting for a while now. Do you want to start talking about the chicks?
Yeah, let's talk about the babies, and then kind of in that realm wrap up with like any tips for people generally.
It's way too much to put everything into one
For
podcast
sure.
episode, but we are considering making like an online course. I think we should, because the amount of just like reading and research that I've done, and like how many different sources you really have to get to like really get an understanding of chickens. Like I think it would be super worth it to just like put it in a course that would include excuse me, how to make your own chicken food, like what we do, how to raise chicks from beginning to end, and then how to care for sick chickens.
Yeah, definitely. And
then also natural coop cleaning methods.
absolutely that. Yeah, and
chicken herbalism. Which I'm going to make a chicken herbal blend to sell at some point soon, because we have started giving our chickens lots of herbs in their food and stuff, and I think that it makes a big difference.
Yeah, and as I've been kind of starting this permaculture course I'm in right now, I'm using that as a propulsion into making our backyard garden and front yard garden just more vibrant and established. That will also transition into a project that I've been wanting to start, that is going to be like a community gardening project for our direct neighborhood, to try to like encourage our very like specific neighborhood and community to garden more and share more food and do it freely, and also encourage more people to learn how to integrate chickens into the garden and have a kind of system that flows in that way. And we can include a little bit of composting with the chickens and that kind of thing in our course. And but yeah, let's talk about the babies. And where to begin with the babies. You know, my niece moved home around 1 year old from California with her mom and dad, my sister, and we've gotten to spend a lot of time with her over. She's now is turning 2.5, and so she's gotten to know Jelly and Bean, and we wanted to possibly, regardless of them moving home, add a few more chickens to our flock after learning with Jelly and Bean and the like, and wanting more eggs and wanting to expand the operation and get more chicken love and all that. But it was especially special to be able to introduce 4 babies as she was growing up. And so we were talking about it for a while throughout 2021, and then, wow.
For her birthday.
So it was in October. It was like a little after her birthday maybe that we actually got them, but it was right around her birthday. October 16th is her birthday, I think. Yeah, we went and got 4 baby chicks from our local farm store, Kaneohe Farm Supply, and we love them because they love natural ways of raising animals too, and actually had some tips for us when we went in there and told them Jelly and Bean were sick. And so we went in there, and if you are in Hawaii, I highly recommend getting baby chicks from them as a source. They will post on their Instagram every few weeks or so what the different breeds they're about to get in the next day, and you can go in the morning and just pick out your babies and take them home in a little box. And
so you don't have to fuss with hatching eggs.
Right.
You can just get some little chicks.
The one thing I'll say up front about baby chicks is definitely do some research ahead of time, because you want to make sure you have a healthy ecosystem to bring them home to right away. Food, grit, water, that's all you need to give them at first. But one of the ladies on
If you're not in Hawaii, they need heat.
Heat. Yeah, heat. Well, we gave
Hawaii's
them a little
hot
heating
enough.
pad, but they would
They
have probably
never
been,
used it, really.
Yeah.
They didn't need a heating pad in
Yeah.
Hawaii.
They often slept on top of the heating pad instead of under it where it was warmer. But they didn't have names at first, of course, when we got them, and we didn't name them right away. But because we had Jelly and Bean, I had always joked that we got to have a peanut and a butter for Jelly and Bean. And so I was dead set on two of them becoming Peanut and Butter. And Rebel, my niece, was getting to name one of the chicks and insisted on her being called Chick.
She wanted to call all of them Chick.
She wanted to call all of them Chick, right? Which also would have been fine for the first few days before we zeroed it, or maybe even first week or so. I called all of them Chick.
I liked your dad's names. Chick, Lick, Dick, and Kick.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. It's so funny.
I would
Yeah,
have kept that. That would have been hilarious.
maybe in the future. Yeah, so Chick was the biggest baby chick at the time, actually, and that's kind of why she got the Chick name, because she was the first to be named, and then the other three were running around without names. And one of them was just so beautiful and brown and kind of, even as a baby, had this really pretty coat, but has developed more and more. She looks like a wildcat in a really beautiful, cool way. Like her spots and little black and brown pattern on her wings. So we called her Brownie pretty much right away. Mm-hmm. And she was
so cliche.
Yeah. We decided to get two. We got 4 chicks. We decided to get 2 that were the Barred Rock or Plymouth Rock breed, which is like the really pretty, like black and white kind of checkered.
Which have always kind of been my favorite chickens. I had an encounter with one of them in the jungle one time, and I guess it wasn't a jungle, it was like a garden that I worked at the back of a valley, and I just saw this chicken and I was like, wow, you're beautiful. I just loved this chicken. Yeah, and I was like, wow, I didn't know chickens could look like that. And now we have Butter.
They're so striking. Yeah, it was cool when Jelly and Bean showed up, because I was like, I mean, if chickens, like you were saying, we have a lot of wild feral-ish chickens around, so like if chickens are all of a sudden randomly coming into your yards, you don't expect to see like the like picturesque version of a pasture-raised chicken, but that's what these 2 birds were. Beautiful. Bean's more of like a Rhode Island red, and Jelly, I'm not 100% sure actually, but she seems more like this buff Orpington breed. They're beautiful. And then, yeah, I was in love with the look of the Barred Rock girls also, so we had to get a couple of those. And then we also decided, since we were getting 4, to get 2 non-brown brown egg laying chickens. We wanted to get colored eggs. So we got 2 what they call Easter eggers, which are typically like a variety of breed actually. But they typically lay blue or colored eggs.
They can lay anywhere from like white to sage green to light blue to pink to light brown to lavender.
I've never seen a lavender.
Yeah, lavender's really rare. I just met someone when I was out of town in New York, and they had a bunch of eggs, and I bought some stuff from them. They now have a goat farm, so I bought some goat milk soap. But they we were chatting, and they have pretty much all the same varieties of chickens that we do.
Oh, nice.
Good combos.
Yeah.
But they said they have a lot of Easter eggers, and they said, yeah, they get all those colors, but they only have one that does a lavender egg, and so they keep all those to themselves for their family.
Nice.
But they'll put the rest of the eggs out, and they're just beautiful.
Yeah, I think it's not Biggest Little Farm, Apricot Lane Farms, who are featured and made the movie The Biggest Little Farm. I follow them on Instagram, and they have a great, of course, diverse flock of chickens, and their egg baskets just look like joyous Easter, like all the colors you mentioned, and even like shades of each of those colors too. It's really cool. So anyway, we had 2 chickens named Chick and Brownie, and then one of the other Easter eggers had this pretty little frosty white, but with a hint of like a bluish color in it. So I started calling her Blue, which was like, I don't want to say a mistake, but like it kind of limited the places we could go with the other names, because I wanted a peanut and a butter. So the other two had to be peanut and butter. So Blue became Peanut, but her
I call
nickname,
her Blue a lot.
yeah, her nickname can still be Blue, and it's
Because
appropriate.
what's funny is Brownie and Blue are the Easter eggers, and of course Brownie is brown, and Blue, or Peanut, is this bluish color. But then Brownie lays blue eggs, and Blue lays brown eggs.
Yeah,
Which is just hilarious.
it is hilarious. I like to think that Blue's peanuts eggs are a little hint of like
Pink.
a taupe pink, like,
Yeah.
you know, just so that we can say we have blue and pink Easter eggers. But they're like a lighter brownish with a hint of pink in there. They're really cute little smaller eggs, because those babies are a little smaller than the Barred Rock girls, who haven't started laying eggs quite yet. But they should any day.
Which isn't, yeah, it's just interesting to see. So in our experience, Easter eggers are laying like at least a week, if not 2, 3 weeks, maybe eventually earlier than the Barred Rock.
Yeah, totally.
And our biggest chicken is Butter. She's bigger than Jelly and Bean. She's bigger than Chick,
Right.
who is pretty much the smallest.
She's now
Chick
turned
is,
into
like,
about the smallest one, yeah.
So yeah, the Barred Rock is the biggest and the smallest in our flock, and Butter is like this sweet little, we call her like the gentle giant, because she's so like, she doesn't really talk much, she doesn't squawk much, except when you pet her on the back, and then she goes like a little turkey.
Yeah.
And she kind of like would do her own thing. She was the sweetest chick too. You could hold her. She was always very curious. She reminds me of Jelly when Jelly was young, where she would just like stare deep into your eyes and you'd feel it like in your heart and soul. And then she would climb up. I definitely got her to like climb up my arm, and she would just sit on my shoulder, and I'd like walk around the room when she was a chick, and I would take her out the most because she was so well behaved. And I would just let her sit on my shoulder. And she would do that until she was like a little teenager, and then she got a little too big, and now
Yeah.
she doesn't love being held. But
She was doing that move. You kind of like got her comfortable with that move by allowing her to do it and encouraging her to do it. Because I remember I would go out there as they were getting pretty big, and like if I would hold out my arm for her to still jump on, like, you know, moments later she'd be walking up all the way
Yeah.
on it and be on like my shoulders and back.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's a beautiful chicken. She's got a like nice calm presence to her.
she's chill with being like alone.
Yeah.
But she likes being with the others. Her and Chick kind of go off on their own now.
Yeah.
But and then Chick is like the opposite of Butter. Chick I'd call our little Chihuahua energy. She's like the smallest and the feistiest.
So much energy.
She will just come up and be like, hey, whoa, like, just like chest bump you, jump on you, bite you.
Yeah, the peckiest of all of our chickens.
And it's hilarious because, like, once you know it's her personality, it's kind of just funny. But it's like, she has this, like, so nosy. She's, like, always by the door, like, trying to get our attention. And that, but also, like, when you try to, like, hang out with her, she'll just, like, bite you.
Yeah.
But then, like, but then it's like, I'll, like, feed the babies all together. The chicks, they're big girls now, but I'll feed like the babies, like food, and then she always wants what's in your hand. She like never wants to share like what's on the ground. She'll like jump on you to try to get whatever's like in the jar. You know, if I'm like this morning I fed them some sprouts, and she was like jumping like 3 feet off the ground trying to get the sprouts out of my hand in a jar. And then I'll go feed Jelly and Bean, and instead of eating the sprouts that I gave to them, she runs after me to try to get, like, Jelly and Bean's food. So, like, now my plan is to, like, make 3 piles of food. There's, like, the 3 babies' food, and then Jelly and Bean's food, and then Chick's food.
It's a good plan. Yeah, she's hilarious because, you know, as we've alluded to a good bit, as the babies have gotten bigger, it's a little less the chasing and pecking, but Jelly and Bean get after them pretty good and will just go disrupt their calm if they're off sleeping somewhere or whatever. But Chick, though, the others, Brownie, Peanut, and Butter, they get chased, they'll just kind of keep scooting away. But Chick will get chased away, and then 2 seconds later she'll come right back into Jelly and Bean's space, all proud of herself.
But do you remember Butter used to do that too? When she was because Butter was definitely, she was the first to try to sleep up with the big girls.
Sure.
She was the first to kind of leave the babies and see, I think she really was ready and wanted to fit in, which is why we were so surprised she didn't lay first, because she always was the first one doing things.
Yeah.
Now she might be the last to actually lay, funny enough.
Yeah.
But she used to do that too. She would we would feed Jelly and Bean, and she would go run up, and they would chase her away, and she'd come right back, and they'd chase her away, she'd come right back. She really wanted to kind of be in their little duo and make it a trio, but I think she kind of finally gave up on that. She's like, okay, I'll hang out with the little ones.
Yeah. Exactly.
For now. Maybe it'll change in a few months. It'd be fun to do a post-chicken update once they're all laying, all more integrated. Or maybe they keep their pecking order forever. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be the fascinating thing to watch as they continue growing. And yeah, Butter and Chick, our Barred Rock girls, aren't quite laying eggs yet, and they do chickens. And if you have chickens, you know this already, but when they are ready to lay eggs and on into the future, they will start doing this move that they don't do before laying eggs, which is to spread their wings out and protect their womb. Is it a womb in a chicken?
I'm guessing that.
Yeah. And really tense up and flex their muscles in their wings and their back and everything, and it's a protection if especially if there's a human or something over and above them coming over. And so when you go to pick them up or try to, they'll do that move instead of scoot away when they're of egg laying age. And Butter is not quite doing that yet, no matter how big she gets, but she's close, I think, to laying. Anyway, yeah, they're all doing good together.
They're integrated, but they're cliquey.
They are
it's
cliquey.
Still Jelly and Bean, and then the babies.
It is.
Two-tiered society we've got going on here.
It is. In our course that we will work on, and it'll be a little bit specific to Hawaii, but we'll try to bring some general information into it for anywhere as well. We'll get into this a little bit more, but one of the things that I've learned over the last few years that I've been practicing in the garden is something called Korean natural farming. And it actually is an old just practice from different places in the world, I think. It turns out it's not just exclusive to Korea, but this one master of the technique became especially famous over the last few decades for his ways of harvesting plant material and indigenous microorganisms from the land, from the space where he was farming, in order to feed back to the plants and to the spaces where the animals were. And so I was mentioning a couple of the concoctions that I made that had been just for the plants around. And so that was an exciting thing once we were chicken parents too, for me to kind of start implementing that. And it is really fascinating though how effective this method of fermenting plants from your garden using things like lactic acid bacteria, which you make from a combination of milk and rice washed water fermented over a period of days. It's also how you can make a soft cheese. But you extract the lactic acid bacteria, and that's one of the key components. It attracts a whole bunch of microorganisms because you ferment it out in your area for the day. So that goes into water at a very small dilution, and you spray that on the floor of your coop and rake it up and cover it with a little bit of extra mulch. And it is amazing how it goes from this stinky, poopy smell to smelling kind of like fresh baked bread, like the soil should smell, kind of like in this yeasty kind of bacteria combo that is inviting rather than not inviting. And one of the guys, real quick, that I learned some Korean natural farming from, who's a farmer on the Big Island, Drake, who's also a member of Hawaii Farmers Union United, says, I've heard him say in many of his videos, your nose knows.
I was going to quote him too. I was just going to say, when you're spraying out the coop, like if Korean natural farming is not something that you're familiar with and you just, people at home want to try something, you can go to the garden store or order online something called EM, which is usually sold as like a gardening amendment. A lot of people use it for like water restoration projects, cleaning like sewage and septic tanks and that kind of stuff. And it's EM stands for like effective microorganisms. And I use it because my cats pee, one cat in particular at home pees like out on the lanai and not in her litter box often. And so to like treat that, my sister actually tried this the first time, but you make like a little microorganism in water solution and just spray it straight on it, and like it's crazy. Like it's also a lactobacillus strain. So the lactobacillus goes in and like eats all the ammonia. It eats all of the stuff that like makes things smell bad and starts breaking it all down. Like it's just crazy. Like they're there to like eat the trash. And so, but one of the things I remember Drake saying, this isn't going to be a direct quote, but it's basically like what's the difference between like EM and KNF? And he's like, well, EM's like one microbe and KNF is like thousands like coming to help you in your assistance.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it. Like I just think more diversity tends to be better when you know what you're doing and your nose knows. It's when you get into the world of fermenting, whether it's in the kitchen or whether it's in the garden space and with soil and compost or like whatever you're doing, like you just default to that nose. That's how you guide everything.
Yeah.
And you can tell when you start, because we ferment chicken food too, you can tell when it's not smelling good, or like if the sprouts got neglected and are starting to go bad, like when it's not good. And yeah.
I mean that idea, I mean it's such a simple concept, your nose knows, but it goes for almost anything related to life and health and like,
I mean, that's what our ancestors did.
Yeah.
Fermentation practices are old. They're so old, especially grain ferments,
Yeah.
Grain ferments and maybe like honey ferments, like mead. Old. You think they were fucking looking that shit up on Wikipedia? No, they were using their nose.
Yeah, which I think like is, and it's the, you do have to be diligent when you're fermenting things. If you're consuming them for yourself, right away, because it's not just your nose, but your taste buds will tell you right away, like, okay, stop eating that. But if you're we've been giving fermented food to our chickens because this lady we follow recommended it, and it just made sense to us right away for all the reasons we're talking about right there. When you do a fermentation, it sort of compacts and attracts like a whole bunch of good bacteria and microbes from your local area, which is where the chickens are living, which is where you're living. And this cycle we need to tap, I think, back into a lot more. in our cooking and food preparations. But I think that they go when the fermented food is prepared right.
Are we just getting our chickens drunk? Is that why they like?
Maybe they go so wild, and it's the only time I've ever seen Jelly be mean to Bean. She is
Over
top
the ferment.
chick on the pecking order, but yeah, if Bean's getting a little too much of the fermented food, she'll turn to her and start like chasing her away.
It does make them a little wild, but they love it, like, because we give our chicken, we have backup pellets that we get from the Scratch and Peck brand, but we hand blend our own. You buy like bulk 25-pound bags of different grains. We hand blend them into a mix, and then from there we'll keep like a dry mix on hand where we add other things to it, like kelp and yeast and
yeast.
Herbs and oyster shells. And then when we use the rest of the mix to make sprouts. So we try to cycle through with like having some sprouts going, and then having all the same grain blend, but having some of it dried, some of it sprouted, and then some of it fermented to just really help switch up their diet. Because and I think they really like it that way. I think they don't love eating only sprouts. Yeah. And I don't think they probably they might love eating only the fermented food, but like, yeah. I think it's a good blend. And then, we give them dried grubs. We're going to eventually get on the growing our own mealworms for them is our next plan.
I just ordered an actual...
And that will be in our course. So we'll definitely wait for that. But yeah, they live a pretty plush little life, I think.
Yeah. In our scenario, we do sprouts especially because they eat all the plant life in the run and coop that they have. If anything grows back, they love eating the leaves of this plant, the yellow Eldorado plant that we have here in Hawaii. And so the low ones that are near enough to them, they'll get to and they'll eat, but they'll eat them all anyway. So the sprouted food is a good way we can give them some like vibrant plant material that they need.
Yeah. Otherwise, we let them run around usually every day, and they get to eat grass and forage for bugs. Except I feel like the yard doesn't have that many bugs. I was telling you this earlier. I was like digging holes with Jelly earlier, looking for some comfrey root from a plant that died back, which no, it didn't work. No. Anyway, so we were digging in the ground, and I didn't find like one bug the whole time I was digging. And so that's why I think growing your own fresh living bugs is good, because we give them a lot of like dried grubs, but not the same. They're not the same.
Yeah. This isn't chicken related, but it is chicken related, because I mean it's part of the whole system's type of farming, gardening that we are trying to focus on doing. Is there should be bugs in that soil, and so that's one of my main things right now, is building the soil up so that there's abundant life in it. Even when we do have foraging chickens running around eating a lot of the bugs, there should still be lots of bugs in that soil, and it should be softer. But that's where the Korean natural farming amendments and a better system of mulching and compost, which I have about ready to be implemented, our first batches of compost from our and the chickens have helped us a lot with building that compost, because now
you're right, this is like the first batch of the backyard compost since we really implemented the system.
A better system, and it has the luxury of a lot of great plant material from a yard, our food scraps, and the mulch and poop from the chicken coop we bedding we throw in there. And so I'm really excited to start placing that around and build up the soil around the yard for our plants and for us and for the chickens' benefit as well.
Yeah, because for anyone who doesn't know, chicken poop without being like sitting and fermenting and degrading a bit is really rough in the garden. You really do want to always put like any sort of animal waste in through a composting system. as a rule of thumb for like a human run garden bed. It's very different if they're like ruminant animals roaming the prairie and that
Right.
kind of stuff, but like in a small scale-ish gardening system, you're collecting poop. It's best, especially in a setting like a coop, you always want to run that through a compost because you really want the microorganisms do all the work. It's the same in our bodies too. It's like your stomach acid only does so much. The microorganisms do the rest. And so you really want the microorganisms to like process those plants and process the organic matter down to actually make the exudates, which is what the plants actually use in the garden. So when in doubt, run it through the compost first. That's a good rule of thumb. And I think that goes, because I see a lot of people just like adding things into like garden beds or soil blends or whatever, and that's fine. But I think it's best actually if you run it through a compost and then put it in. Even things like biochar, seaweed, that kind of stuff. I think it just is better and more bioavailable if it's going through a composting process.
Yeah. Anywhere the chickens end up scratching and pooping a lot straight in the garden, especially if there's more delicate plants like herbs and the like, those are gone in moments if we don't do a good job of keeping the chickens out of that space. But trees and stuff can handle it. But yeah, compost the chicken poop. Well, I think we've shared most of the things I can think of about our first few years of chicken love that I can think of. Any other little tidbits or stories or sign-offs or I don't know.
Just that for the record, I love jelly and bean and butter and brownie and blue and Chick, even though Chick's kind of a dick sometimes.
Yeah.
We got Meanie Beanie. We got Yelly Jelly because Jelly is very loud in the coop. And Chick the dick.
Yeah, because she's always pecking us. She was doing it a little too aggressive and hard when she was a month or so ago and younger.
She is getting a little bit better.
I
knew
like
she would.
A little more controlled with the peck.
It's just so crazy though, because like I'll go and feed them out of my hand, all of them, and every single one has known exactly what to do except Chick. She would just like,
yeah.
like try to gouge my palm out of my hand. Like, what is she doing? She'd leave like beak marks on you. Like, she's crazy.
She is. Just her way of playing, I guess.
I guess so.
She kind of...
But she is not scared, and she loves chasing birds.
Yeah, loves it.
So in some way, like when she's not being... It's just annoying sometimes because she'll like... At one point, she was so testy too. She would like come at me and I would be like, hey, back off. And then like the more you would just like bump her to the side, she'd like get more into it. I'm like, what is wrong with you? But... that's just her personality. She chases all the birds away from the food. Like I feel like half the day she's chasing birds outside.
Yeah, her role in our life and with the rest of her chicken friends is just like spunk. It's like to just bring some positive but aggressive sometimes, but like positive energy to the crew, I think.
I feel like it's when you're a parent and you're like all your kids are like kind of the same, and then you have like the fourth one or something and you're just like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Why don't you fit in with the rest of us? That's like Chick.
That is Chick. I like that she's named Chick because of it. Yeah, it's just good.
And I just also maybe would like to say that, like, if you have the space to have chickens and you have kids, it's so great to have kids grow up with chickens. Mm-hmm. Like, it's been really cute to see Rebel. Rebel knows exactly, she's 2.5, she knows exactly how to take care of chickens. She's like, when one of them's yelling, she's like, you gotta go look at the chickens, you know? And then she's like, She knows where the grubs are. She feeds them grubs. She's so gentle, feeding them all their favorite leaves, and it's so cute. She helps us sweep off the compost
when they make a mess.
pathway when they make a mess. It's just really precious, and she knows all of their names. She goes, "Hi, Peanut. Hi, Brownie. Hi, Chick. Hi, Butter. Hi, Jelly. Hi, Bean."
Yeah, she loves the chickens so much, and they love her too. I think, you know, they've spent that she's like near their size, not so much anymore. She's getting bigger, but she loves just spending. She'll go in the coop now by herself. First, she was a little timid, especially to go by herself, but she'll go. She loves going in there, hanging out by herself.
Yeah, this morning she locked herself in there.
And she'll say,
I like had the door cracked so she wasn't trapped, and she goes, "Close door." I was like, "Okay, I'll close the door. Let me know when you're ready to come out." She's like, "Okay." And I was feeding Chick outside of the door because she needed her own pile.
And Rebel will like kick her. I'll do it on the table like this because it's easier to demonstrate. But like kick her feet back and forth like she's scratching like a chicken, and she'll say, "Digging."
Yeah. And when she was younger too, she would like walk like a chicken. We'd be like, "How's a chicken walk?"
Right. When she was really young, she would do the funniest chicken walk, arms back and head full forward, like this was her wings on the side of her back. Yeah, really
So
cute.
it's a really great way for them to just like observe and learn, and also love them. She totally loves them, and her face like lights up when she gets to hold them or pet them. She like pure joy on
Pure
that
joy
kid's
and
face.
laughter.
She
Yeah.
loves it. And my favorite too is when we go outside and then I just hear Rebel, "Be nice, Chick."
Yeah, because Chick was the aggressor and would peck a lot. She would scare Rebel a little bit and come right up to her and pecked her a time or two, but never too harshly. But yeah, be nice, Chick.
Be nice, Chick.
Be nice, Chick. Real loud. Be nice to Rebel, Chick, she would say. Or be nice to one of the other chicks, she would say too. Here and there, she would watch Chick like kind of run up strongly to them.
Nice.
Well, that was
That's
a
all I
great
got.
chicken chat.
We could just turn this into a chicken podcast.
I suppose. We have lots of other things we would love to talk about though, but I'm sure we'll be chatting more about chickens, and we'd love to hear any anecdotes if any listeners have chickens or have any questions or anything like that, but certainly in the comment sections on our Instagram or YouTube, if you have any stories to share of your own, we'd love to hear them, and we'd love to just keep this a conversation going over time as well, so we can learn from each other and have more fun with chickens and in the yard and in the garden and growing food and eating good tasty eggs.
And now every time that we actually talk about our chickens moving forward, people will have kind of an idea of the backstory of Jelly and Bean and the babies and how they came to be.
Good one. All right, until next time.
Till next time.
See you guys later. Bye. Cheers. Hello all.